Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. And today we have a very special guest who is going to help us to avoid mistakes in the first place so we don't have to recover from them later in life. Sibongile Ngako. See, I know I got it right earlier, and now I'm screwing it up.
It happens.
Sibongile Ngako is a Harvard-educated corporate fintech and compliance executive, leveraging her expertise and background to help empower women professionally, personally, and financially. Excellent. Sibongile, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm really excited to talk to you about the secret topics that we already have planned.
Yeah, well, folks will find out soon enough. But
Exactly. Stay tuned for the fun stuff we have planned for you. So first of all, I mean, finance, when I was in college, I took a finance class and I thought, what made me think I wanted to be an accountant, which at one time I thought I did, but that's not how you felt, right? How did you, is this like a beginning of the life passion, or did you kind of evolve into this? How did you become interested in finance?
no, it's a good question. And I definitely consider it to be an evolution. And so when I was a little girl, I wanted to be an opera singer, an actress. I did musical theater, and I still do for
Fun.
culture. So very much an artistic soul, a creative soul. And when I was in college, I interned with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So that was kind of my introduction into financial services generally. And I actually interned in an area called the Office of Regional and Community Affairs, which has to do with the bank's responsibility to low and moderate income communities and minority communities, which was very near and dear to my heart at that time and continues to be. And then, I kind of embarked from there on a career in financial services and compliance and regulation in particular. So full-time at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, went on to Fannie Mae, went on to American Express, where I spent 10 years, and I'm now in fintech. So all financial services. And I just found that I had so much knowledge and information, both as a professional in financial services, but just frankly, as someone who came from a middle class background, but from a family that really struggled financially, and where I saw my parents and my mother in particular struggle financially. And that impacted me in a lot of ways as a child, and then as an adult, and then as a young woman, in terms of how I thought about my finances and various difficulties that I navigated throughout my life and overcame. And I'm always searching for new and different ways to share the information that's in my head and put it out into the world, and help to empower as many people as possible, but women in particular, because I do find, being a woman, but also just also by observation, that we are most in need of empowerment when it comes to money and finances. And so the combination of all that is, I guess, how I came to be here today.
But it's such a wise course, right? I mean, once you learn about money, then it's like it's a new door. It's a new language that you're learning, and now you're teaching it to others, which is fantastic.
That's exactly right. And it's something that can be so daunting when you don't know about it, or you don't think you know about it. It can be so daunting and so overwhelming, and this thing that you give so much power to in a negative way. But once you kind of unlock that door and crack the code, it's actually not so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I would say that I grew up in a lower middle class household, and my dad was a bricklayer, so he worked seasonally. And so it was always saving. You never really knew, right? Because who knows when he's going to work again, right? And and I didn't, I guess we romanticized our poverty, you know what I mean? And you got to let that shit go.
Right. And struggle is so funny because working class families, I think even middle class families, romanticize struggle, right? There's something honorable about it, or it's your work ethic and you're powering through. And frankly, it takes a lot, and frankly, it took me to kind of shed myself of that, to say no, there's no honor in struggle, especially if you can avoid it. If things happen, life happens, so be it. That's the case for everyone. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you kind of live in a carefree way, or don't try to organize your finances or organize your life because struggle is so great. It's
It's highly overrated.
Thank you.
So in your experience, how is it different for women, right? You said that like women have their own sort of struggles, and obviously being a woman, I'm kind of tuned into this, but can you share some things that you've discovered?
So I think we're, impacted on so many levels: societal, emotional, psychological, and they all kind of work together to hold us down if we let it. And so obviously, if you think about the wage gap, even, in 2022, the fact that women make something like only 83% of what men make is just, it's unconscionable to me, really, like in this modern age that still happens.
Yeah.
But over the span of a woman's life, that wage gap, that 17 or however much it is percent, adds up and results in women not being as financially sound over time. So to me, that's the first thing. When you think of jobs and just career progression generally, we deal with caregiving in all its forms, motherhood, taking care of parents, and sometimes have to step out of the workforce as a result, or pay more money as a result. And so that can disadvantage us. But then also, I think there are societal norms that discourage us from, being driven, being successful, celebrating our success. Not necessarily that's something you want to flaunt, but something that you want to own and wear and embrace. And I think even in the workforce, in the corporate world, having to, kind of shadow our light and our brilliance and all the great things that we bring to what we do can also work against us. And then finally, I just say just general lack of confidence. Only 14, I saw a statistic that only 14% of women feel confident about investing and with retirement planning. And so a lot of times it's I know you're like, I mean, these statistics are staggering because it's one of those things where, societally that these things are happening, but when you see statistics around these things, it's staggering. And so, yeah, sometimes just that knowledge gap or that lack of confidence can prevent women in particular from really embracing and owning their financial wellness.
Absolutely. Something I heard a long time ago as well, that, men in the workforce, they'll help another man to succeed, but women in the workforce, it can be more competitive, and that maybe they don't, everybody's vying for the attention of the man. And so we instead of giving a sister a hand up, we're just saying, like, I'm prettier than she is, or I'm, hey, let's just all right. It's a competition, like, I guess, anthropologically, the way we would compete for our father's attention or something, or a mate or whatever. But yeah, that's tragic as well.
It is tragic. And I've seen that and I've experienced that. And I also think it's a function of there being so few of us, oftentimes, especially in positions of leadership or people management and that sort of thing, that there's the sense and maybe the reality that we can't all get into the room, right? That to make it to the next level. And so, which one of us is it going to be? I mean, I think the workforce and a lot of corporate environments, frankly, fuel that by not being inclusive and giving women and people of color, for that matter, and other underrepresented groups, the feeling that only one of you gets in. So
we've met our quota.
Right. Figure out amongst yourselves who that's going to be.
Exactly. Yeah. We got the white guy club here, but we've got, we can have one of you and one of you and one of you, and then that'll be enough. That's enough. It's sad. I don't know how white guys got to be so, like, how they got to be in charge of everything.
I don't know. It's a mystery.
So how can we, do you think women are aware overall that they're aware that they need this education and confidence?
A good question. I think it's hard to say. I think some women are aware that there's that knowledge gap. Maybe they don't know how to go about closing the gap. My guess and my sense is that that's what's happening more often than not. I think that some women are, doing the ostrich and kind of putting their heads in the sand. I know this is something my mother did quite a bit when I was growing up, and this is something, seeing that and seeing the negative effects of that and the downside of that really impacted me in terms of how I thought about money and fiscal responsibility. So I think there is some of that going on, not wanting to, look in your financial mirror and take a look at what's going on with your finances. If you know what's going on with your money, not wanting to create a plan, not wanting that process to be an ongoing process, which inevitably it has to be. And so it's probably a mixed bag. Frankly, there are women who know there's that gap, know they need to be doing better, but don't quite know how to. And then I think there is quite a bit of, ostrich tendencies going on.
It's interesting because I mean, I'm a woman of a certain age, and I know during the aspiration that was handed to me was go marry a rich guy, right? Which didn't interest me. So then I was like, well, then okay, then I guess I'll just have to be poor. Right? I'll just have to be.
Oh no.
Hope for a rich relative to die. That's my option. But I mean, are you seeing that as well? I mean, you're obviously younger than I am. Are you seeing that as well in your age group?
Less so, and it could just be it's probably a combination of the age group and just my cohort. I see kind of the opposite, to be honest. It's like really driven women, really ambitious women, almost like hyper focused on ambition and success, sometimes to their own detriment, to the detriment of their own self-care, their own wellness, their own personal relationships and familial relationships. So I think that's more my cohort and to some degree my generation. Like we definitely have embraced being self-sufficient, being independent, knowing that we can't always rely on a spouse, partner, whatever the case may be. But I think what we more suffer from is like the balance, having achieved all that, and not losing sight of what's important in the process. It's funny because when I was, I bought my first house when I was 25. So like, again, I always had that kind of independent financial mindset. Yeah. And I remember, I bought the house and my father was visiting. I was in DC and my family was still in New York at the time. And I was thinking of getting a dog or some such thing. And he was like, before you get a dog, might as well have some kids, get married. And I just remember being like a state of shock, Christine, because this was literally the first time I could remember. My parents were so hyper focused on my achievement, educational, professional, and the like, that like I'm 25, 26 years old. And this was the first time anybody mentioned marriage as the goal. And I'm like, that's the goal now? Oh no, like this is not what I've been focused on this whole time. So I feel like that is more representative of my cohort.
Interesting. It's funny, when I was going to college, which I didn't do until later, but that was, and this is why I didn't, because they say, oh, you go to college to get your MRS degree. And I'm like, I don't want to be an MRS. I want to be an MS. So I'm not going to college. Right. I was just like, no.
What degree is that? And I was like, oh, I get it.
Go to meet something. Maybe was your unknown to you. Maybe that was your dad's thought. Well, you'll go to college and meet some really smart guy.
Exactly, maybe, and nobody just shared that with me. I know, but I mean, they were super focused on like achievement. It was just achievement was really important, and again, almost to my detriment, because I developed this tunnel vision about achieving, and that has its upsides, but also can be it's a known self-saboteur, being a hyperachiever, and so. Something that I've had to just navigate for frankly my entire life and continues to this day.
So I see the pictures behind you. Do you have young children now?
They're the joys of my life. I have 3 little ones, all under the age of 10. So ages 9, 5, and 2.
Wow. Yeah, that's a full-time job in itself.
Tell me about it. I mean, striking the balance, Christine, with it all is, it's a work in progress. Like it's you're constantly having to calibrate and recalibrate, what's important on any given day and any given moment, only over any given period of time. And I often say that, folks talk about work-life balance and obviously, or work-life harmony. I've also heard discussed, and I kind of think of it in terms of how you spend your time over a sustained period of time. So, not that I will get balance every day, because on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, there'll be times when I'm more of a workaholic. There've been times where I'm more of a mom. There'll be times when I'm just, singing more than I usually do. But if over the course of a month, of a quarter, of a year, I feel that there's been balance within that period of time, then I can't ask for more than that. I don't think any working family person and working mom can. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that, and you have to give yourself some grace for sure. You're just like, okay, today, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever.
Whatever. A lot.
Tomorrow we'll start again.
Whatever. That's right.
So what do you think is a good goal for one? What's your sort of, I mean, you don't have to get into like numbers and details, but a goal to where you can say, okay, I'm ready. I can retire. I'm comfortable. I don't have to worry about things. What's sort of a guideline? Is there a guideline that people should be looking for?
Yeah, I think you have to do the math and just really take all of the factors into account. So it's a number, that's the end result, but there are a lot of inputs into figuring that out. Where do you want to live? Who are you trying to provide for in the meantime? What do you want your life to look like? What are your expenses today? What do you anticipate your expenses will be in 20 years? That, frankly, Christine, is what can make it so daunting. Because, I mean, a lot of times folks have to force themselves to even look at their current expenses, much less try to project and imagine the life you want in 20 or 25 or more years to say, okay, what do I think my expenses will be? But I think what can take the pressure off all of us is knowing that it's ongoing, right? It's a process. I've always said financial planning is a process, not an event. It's a choice and it's strategy. And so knowing that you may revisit this in 5 years, as life events change, if you inherit money or you get a windfall or you have children or you marry, you divorce, you part, I mean, whatever the case may be, that it's a process. And so knowing that and kind of just saying today, here are the inputs. These are my monthly expenses. This is my income. This is where I think I want to live. This is what I think my life will look like. This is my projected income over time. But knowing that you'll be constantly revisiting that over time, I think is the start, is a good start. And then also, I mean, don't be afraid to, I mean, I think the other thing we as women can sometimes suffer from is not wanting to ask questions, being afraid of looking dumb, thinking, we should know the answer to something that we would have no way of knowing the answer to, and so, seek the help of a financial advisor, a professional, someone who's reputable, talk to several people, ask questions, do your research. I mean, I think that's the other part of the equation that can really help empower women and make the process feel a little less daunting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one challenge that I've been hearing from some women in my mastermind group is that they had provided for themselves and they felt like they were all set, but they're finding now that their parents have some needs that they hadn't factored in to their own personal budget. I mean, one of my friends, her mom had to pay a big amount on her for her property taxes or something that she didn't have saved. And so my friend had to take it out of her own savings. And she was like, well, this is pretty crappy. This is not on my budget this year, this month or whatever. And then other people who are saying that one of them said, my aunt who has a lot of resources is going to this, really nice nursing home type setting. And I think my mom expects to go there too. And I can't, she can't afford it. And I certainly don't have it in my budget. Right. So are you finding that at all with like some unexpected surprises?
I mean, there's definitely the pressure of familial expectations that I can relate to. And I think to your point, that is something that women do often encounter. And it could be, an unexpected child, unexpected family, but caregiving, because oftentimes when you're thinking future, an elderly and aging parent is almost like it's future, but it's also past. So you're not necessarily, taking that into account as you envision your future. But I think to your point, that's something that a lot of women do struggle with and often, feel the burden of and feel compelled to maybe sacrifice their own financial well-being in order to support elderly parents or other family members. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I read somewhere too that women are more likely that they will save for their kids' college before they save for their own retirement. Yeah. We just addressed that a little bit, why that's a good or a bad idea.
I mean, women are resourceful, and we're devoted in everything that we do. You know, not to generalize, but I just do think, you know, we're the more devoted, kind of selfless gender, if you will. And so, yeah, I think there is a tendency to say, I think one, firstly, it's partly chronological. Like if I have kids going to college in 8 years, which I want one, oh my gosh, she will be. I can't believe that. One of them will be going to college in 8 years, but I don't plan to retire for 25. Part of it is chronological. Part of it is, you know, if I have a limited pot of money, let me try to, you know, in a very serial way, deal with what I think is going to happen first. So that's one part of it. But the other part of it is that we do tend to be selfless, and we do tend to say, let me take care of others, whether it be a parent or a child, before worrying about myself. I think you have to think about it all. And I think this is frankly where a sound financial advisor can be of help, because I know when the times when I've gone to financial advisors, and they've been many, many times over the course of a year, even in instances where I didn't use that financial advisor or use a financial advisor at all, just the process, that like intro, you know, laying out your finances, thinking of long range, answering questions that forces you to think about things like an aging parent or children, and in addition to your own retirement down the line,
Right.
helped me prioritize. So like, I think I spoke to my first financial advisor when I was in my early 20s, didn't engage the services of a financial advisor for maybe a decade after that. But in the meantime, was thinking about the questions and churning over the things I had to think through that would then inform later financial decisions. So I think you have to think about it all. I mean, I think you have to say, I have 3 kids going to college in the next, you know, 8 to 16 years. How do I, you know, what do I apportion for each of them? Where do I put it? How do I invest it so my money can grow in the meantime? And then also, how do you know, how much do I have to import, input into my 401k or brokerage account or an IRA? I think you have to think about it all, because if you don't, you do fall in the condition that you mentioned, which is, you know, okay, got the college, you know, college situated for the kids, but wait, now what? I don't have savings, or I don't have retirement, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have no time to save for them. You know, by the time your kids are in college, in your 40s at least,
That's
and
right.
you're like, oh, okay, I want to retire in 15 years. How's that going to work out? Right?
And you become the aging parent who
That
did
you're
not.
hoping your kids are going to be, you
That's
know, able
right.
to take care of.
That's right. And it continues this cycle where that's exactly it, Christine. Like you're hoping that your kid, you put it all in your kids, and you're hoping to get a return on that investment. When really looking at your financial picture and just your financial future holistically would allow you to prepare for your own retirement and take the burden off your kids, so that they can, you know, kind of start their lives and find their paths and determine their futures without necessarily having caregiving for you, you know, top of mind.
Right. Exactly. Now you find out why your dad wanted you to study so hard.
Exactly. Now I know. He's no longer with us, but I found my answer along the way.
So Sibongile, what is are there some tips? Are there some things that women can and should be doing,
Yeah, no,
like
absolutely.
right away, like this afternoon, to get themselves set up in a good place?
Correct. Yes. And so the first thing is something my mother actually always told me, and maybe it goes to our last conversation, which is pay yourself first. And for so long, I was like, what exactly does that mean? And I'm like, I have no idea what that means or what that looks like. And what I've interpreted it to mean is that when you get a paycheck, direct deposit, you know, these days, most likely, there should be 10 to 20% of that money you don't even see. Because if you get 100% of that money, you're going to spend it on your living expenses, you're going to spend it on groceries, you're going to go buy something, you're going to go buy a toy for your child. Like it's just human nature. It just makes it harder when you have 100% of your money and then you have to take it away from yourself and then stash it somewhere. What I've found to be really effective is, you know, direct depositing into multiple accounts. So, you know, maybe 85% will go in a checking account, 5% is going to a money market account, 5% is going somewhere else, 6% into that's 101%. But so some portion is going to my 401k. 401k is another great way of any employee sponsored account really, but another great way of kind of like directing that money, not even seeing that money. And a lot of employers offer matching. So it's literally doubling your money in a lot of cases. So the first thing is pay yourself first. The second thing, which is kind of related to paying yourself first, is building a freedom fund. And that's just building savings. And I call it a freedom fund because it links financial wellness to just your overall wellness and your overall ability to make sound decisions on your own behalf that are not influenced by gotta stay in this job because, feeling trapped in this relationship because, fill in the blank. And so pay yourself first and then use that money in part to build a freedom fund, which will grow over time. It's not going to be an overnight event, but over time you'll have that stash, if you will, that will give you the freedom to make decisions based on other things than money in the bank or living paycheck to paycheck. And then the third big thing I'd say is keeping an eye on your money. Okay, so how many of us, we save, we amass that money, we work, and then we don't even look at what's happening with it from month to month or quarter to quarter, or year. And I mean that in all respects. It's looking at the balances in your checking, savings, money market, investment accounts. For investment accounts, seeing how it's performing. Is that where you want to keep your money, or how you want to apportion your portfolio? It's even for things like debt. Are you getting charged the APR that you agree to from your credit card company? Banks make mistakes as much as or more than any other institution. I've seen firsthand. So are you getting the rewards currencies that you think you're getting on your statements month to month? In all respects, keep an eye on your money. And having, it's funny, on my podcast, I was talking about mint.com. My guest, Rachel Burns, was, and just how that's one way of just consolidating all of your accounts in one place and making it easy for yourself. But there's so many tools like that out there that allow you to just keep an eye on your money so you know what's going on and you're in the practice of looking at your money, looking at your financial picture and being informed in that way. And then maybe finally, I'd say, find sustainable sources of income and diversify those sources of income. I think what served me really well is always having a day job, but sometimes having multiple jobs. Like I mentioned, I'm creative soul at heart. At one point, I had taken a break from financial services and I was a music director for a choir. I was a piano teacher. I was singing. I mean, I think it serves us all well to always have, whatever you want to call it, a side hustle, another pursuit, something you can pivot to in the event that your day job, goes right. Or again, giving yourself options and choices in the event that you decide, what, I've done this for long enough, I want to try something else. Always giving yourself that optionality, I think is also essential.
Yeah, and that's a great point because it's true. We begin, especially if we do the same thing for a long time, we begin to become our job, right? I am just, what are you? I'm, what, tell me about yourself. Oh, well, I'm a blank, right? I'm a real estate agent. Oh, okay. No, I'm a woman, I'm an artist, I'm a whatever, right? And who you actually are, the broader, the more you recognize all your other talents, the easier it is for you to sort of envision yourself as a holistic person, like you say, not just like, I have to stay at this crappy job because I haven't given myself any options.
Right. And then you don't feel trapped, you don't get stuck in a rut.
Exactly. Interesting. So what kind of, when you first start working with someone, and how does that go? What kinds of, do you do like some analysis together? I mean, what's a typical sort of intake conversation that you have with folks?
Yeah, so for full disclosure, most of kind of what I talk about in my experience are things I've done for myself. I'm not a financial advisor, planner, or coach. I'm really just here trying to say, this is my experience. Here's what's worked for me. throwing it out into the world and hoping it will work for other women as well. But I
Yeah.
can say what I've done for myself is I'm a big spreadsheet person. I think it's a function of, being in financial services and do it for so long that it started to come naturally. And so again, for me, it used to be spreadsheets, but now there are all kinds of tools. Mint is one I mentioned that allows you to pull in your information, debt, accounts, insurance, other things, and have that full financial picture. But before, the advent of these things, I used to actually, calculate my net worth on a quarterly basis and track it over time. And it would go up and it would go down as, my job changed or my life circumstances change or other things came into play. But having that practice, it's really a discipline, but it's a habit. It's just a habit that we all have to develop of looking at my assets and my liabilities. So the money I have and the assets I have, as well as my debts, tracking them over time, being really intentional about paying down debt and using debt wisely, using it more as cash flow management than something that you want to build up over time, especially high interest debt. A lot of times I say debt gets a bad rap because the conventionalism is that, oh, it's a bad thing to be in debt. It's not a bad thing to be in debt. It's a bad thing, one, to have high interest debt. And it's also not a great thing to be encumbered by that debt, to have that debt be bigger than you and really be taking away from your financial stability and financial wellness. So these are some of the things I've been doing for decades, starting with just basic Excel spreadsheets, looking at my financial picture from quarter to quarter. And I would say that is really the first step, because once you have that information and you're faced with that picture, then it becomes a little easier to know what to do. You can look at it and say, I need to pay down my debt. You can look at it and say, I need more other sources of income, either in the form of a higher paying job or more diverse sources of income. But until you have that clear financial picture, and which informs what your financial goals are and the goals for your life generally are, I think it's very hard to do. Yeah,
that's true. And I think along this process, you're kind of making friends with your money, right? You're taking your head out of the sand.
Exactly right. You're making friends with your money. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Because that's, I think, one of the problems. Like you say, you get your head in the sand and you don't want to think about it. I know it's not enough, so I'm just not going to look at it.
That is not the answer. In case anybody's wondering, the answer is not to be an ostrich. Don't be an ostrich. Like I need that on a t-shirt or something.
Exactly. Get your head out of the sand. I'm a little bit, it's kind of silly, but some of these online resources make me a little nervous about having all my financial stuff kind of out there in the world.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially these days, it just really seems, and I feel like this has been reported on too, but particularly since, the world changed back in late 2019, early 2020, it's cyber attacks, other kinds of fraud have just really been on the rise. And so, that can be a consideration too. If you are using those kinds of tools, it's worth looking at their data security practices and making sure that there haven't been any data breaches. But it's not the only way. It could be a very convenient way. I think online portals generally today for bank accounts and credit cards and other instruments make it easy for you to check in. So yeah, it's just about kind of each person's comfort level and weighing the benefit of the convenience with other cyber security and risks. Yeah.
There may still be a place for spreadsheets and ledgers. And
even in 2022, Christine, I have to say, I like a good old spreadsheet. I will say that it's not for everyone, but I guess I'm just used to it at this point.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when you said that, I thought, well, it's true. I do all my stuff on a spreadsheet too, and I know there's easier ways to do it, but it just feels, plus it forces you to go into your account and look, if you just get it all in, you might say, oh, I wonder why that's so low.
That's right, exactly. Just the process of putting it in. And it also goes to show that there isn't a one size fits all approach for everyone. It really, managing your financial wellness, financial future is up to you. It's up to you to do in whatever way is authentic to you, whatever way feels natural to you, using whatever tools come most easily to you. I mean, really, I think that's the other thing that can be daunting, which is like, you know, we have this picture of like, this is what it looks like to manage your finances. And if it doesn't look like that, then I'm not going to do it. Or if it doesn't look like that, then it's not good enough. No, however you choose to manage your financial picture and your financial wellness is perfect for you. And so go do it pronto.
So aside from saving and, you know, and putting things away, are there any other things that you personally do to kind of increase your wealth? Any kind of, do you invest in the stock market, but like on your own? Do you have real estate, anything like that?
Yeah, so I've done various things over time. I did have real estate. I found over time that being a landlady wasn't for me. Just frankly, there are people that don't get stressed out about that kind of thing. I'm not one of them, I came to find. And so I offloaded the properties that I had that were investor properties. It's something I may revisit one day because it is another way of kind of diversifying your investment picture. But I mostly stick to the stock market. And let me be clear when I say that, because I am also not a trader. I admire people who can who have the bandwidth and the time and the energy and the focus to follow stocks, to day trade, or, you know, trade on other timelines. I am admitted, I will be the first to say I'm not people listening and viewing today, one of those people. And so again, another example of do what works for you and know that that can change over time. In my 20s and 30s, that was kind of my real estate investment time. It was also a good time in the housing market, frankly, prior, 2008. And I got to benefit from a lot of the booms in New York at that time and in DC as well. And so know that, what you do is based on your comfort level, your risk level as a person, but also can change over time. Like the things I had tolerance and time to do in my 20s and 30s, I can assure you I don't have tolerance or time to do today. And so, and know that that's going to be fluid. But for me, Christine, to answer your question, it's mostly been, mutual funds, 401k, money market accounts, just to have some liquidity. Because, that's the other thing. It varies kind of what people's comfort is in terms of like, what's the liquid stash that you have available in the form of a savings account or a money market account. I, a little bit risk averse, so I like to have that on the higher end, 6 to 12 months of living expenses. That's my personal preference. And if I'm not, I found over time that like, if that's not what's in the bank, like I am troubled by that. I don't know as when it is, and so really it's developing and accepting that how I manage my money is going to be different from how you manage yours. It's going to be different than the folks, how they manage who are watching today, and that will change over time. But those have been the things that I've stuck to for the most part over time. And then also trying to diversify those income streams as much as possible.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, obviously the more places you can get passive income, the better.
Absolutely.
Put your money to work. I'm thinking of the richest man in Babylon, right?
Right.
Put all your little soldiers to work.
Yeah, they're out there working and you're not.
Exactly. I've really had fun talking with you. I love all your attitude and your smile and all the great tips that you're sharing. But is there anything that you wish I would have asked you? Anything that you feel you want to share with folks that I just haven't touched on?
Let me say that I think we've been talking about money and finances a lot. I personally think that at the core of this is confidence and mindset. And, sometimes discussions around finance get so technical in terms of like the numbers and the spreadsheets and the tools. And that is obviously an aspect of managing one's money. But going back to feeling empowered, to not putting your head in the sand, so much of it is attitude. It's mindset. It's building that confidence. It's believing you can do it, that this isn't something that only rich people do or something that only men do. And so I find that I've talked about with other folks too, once you embrace that mindset and your worth just as a person, as a woman, and certainly this would apply professionally as well, the picture starts to become really clear because you're taking the same mindset, the same confidence to your job, to your financial advisor as you're doing your spreadsheet. So, whatever you're doing. And so, always, women particularly should always remain mindful of that aspect, that the more confident, the more empowered you can feel as a woman and as a person, that will also flow through into all aspects of your life, including your financial life.
How do you think women could go about becoming more confident about their finances?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think education is part of it. So how are you educating yourself? Reading books, checking out webinars. There's just so much information out, listening to podcasts. I mean, there's so much information out there today relative to, I think, even 10, but certainly 20 or more years ago. I mean, a lot of, like, it used to be, you maybe read Rich Man, Poor Man, like that was all that was out there, but there's so many resources out there. So firstly, educating yourself in a number of ways, using a number of resources, because then you start to see common themes. I mean, truly, yes, there are, more recent developments in financial services like crypto and Bitcoin and this kind of thing, but for the most part, there's not that much new under the sun. So you start to see these common themes and these common threads. You start to familiarize yourself with them. You start to get comfortable with the concept of them. And I think that's how you bridge the gap, by educating yourself and just availing yourself of as many resources as possible.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, because when you go talk to your financial advisor, that's why you're going to have the confidence, because they're not going to be talking over your head. They're not going to be bringing up concepts that you've never heard of or whatever, that you can have that, like, okay, yeah, I was just watching, I was just listening to a podcast about that,
That's exactly right. And if they do, you don't feel bad asking the question, because you're like, well, I know 80% of what this person is saying, so I feel empowered to ask about the other 20%.
Exactly. Excellent. So I think, I don't know. I mean, I think our time is like almost gone already.
Quickly.
It did. It just like flew by. I loved our conversation. So I guess, how can people, do you like help people like one-on-one? Is it appropriate for people to reach out to you and kind of like?
Be welcome to. I'm always interested in hearing about what women are struggling with, because that helps me tailor my podcast subjects and blog topics and other things that I address. So please do reach out to me. You can find me on SibongileNgako.com, also on LinkedIn, Sibongile Ngako, or same Instagram at Sibongile Ngako. So please reach out. I love hearing from folks.
Excellent. And all those links are going to be in the show notes. So if you're driving, don't try to take all that down.
Please drive safely, responsibly, please.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing this time with us today.
Thanks, Christine, for having me. This is great.
Yes, it was fun. And thank you, listener, for listening. Thank you, listener, for listening. I hope that you have somebody in mind who you want to share this information with, share this episode, because obviously Sibongile has just like opened up and uncovered, some of the things that you maybe were, like you say, had your head in the sand, or you're kind of hiding from. And it's time to, take back that power, and to the time value of money, right? The magic of compound interest. Like, when's the best time to plant a tree? Right? 20 years ago, the second best time is right now. So do it right now. Set up your automatic savings plan and get, some books on the topic. And, I would say subscribe, if you haven't already, subscribe to Better Investing. Do you know Better Investing?
No, I don't know that one.
Fantastic organization, betterinvesting.org. They basically a group of people who love to invest in the stock market and love to educate people on how to invest in the stock market. So they have tons of free resources, tons of like excellent software for stock analysis and stuff. And the Better Investing National Convention, all kinds of fun things coming up for that. And I would say it's a really good, easy way to start to educate yourself and to start to build up a community of people who would love to talk to you about any kind of stock or any way of investing, including mutual funds and, ETFs and things like that. So that's maybe a suggestion from my side of the fence here. And keep listening to, and obviously you have to listen to Sibongile's podcast.
Empower you.
What is it? Fempower You?
That's right. Fempower You across all platforms, podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, check it out. And also on YouTube.
Awesome. Awesome. Definitely check that out. So thank you, listener, for listening. Thanks for being here. I know you have a choice of many millions of podcasts, so I'm really grateful that you're here. And be sure to join us next week.